السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اليوم حنتكلم عن the fourth case study في the iterative improvement chapter. تكلمنا عن simplex method, maximum flow problem, maximum matching in bipartite graph problem. واليوم حنتكلم عن the stable marriage problem. طيب لما نيجي نتكلم عن a stable marriage problem, we're basically trying to find the best possible matches where everyone in the marriage is as content as they can be with their partner. That's the bottom line of this problem. The problem includes two lists, one of men and one of women, in which each man has a specific ranking of all the women in the other list, and each woman has a specific ranking of all the men from the men's list. The basic rule in this issue here is that each man can marry one woman and vice versa is true. That doesn't mean that they can't change, but at the very end, each man can be married to one woman only. But keeping that in mind, it's always better to have a visual aid when working with such problems. فعشان كده, we made a matrix for the men's preferences and the women's preferences with the people we're going to be working with now. So the suitors we have are Bob, Jim, and Tom. هذول اللي هم العرسان, وبعدين عندنا العرايس اللي هم Anne, Leah, and Sue. So what the matrix basically says is, for Bob, Leah is his first choice, Anne is his second choice, and Sue is his third choice. Oh, it goes on. By column is the preference, and by row is the person. ونفس الشيء عند البنات. Anne, her first choice is Jim, her second choice is Tom, and her third choice is Bob. And this is all nice and neat, but it's not very helpful when we have two different matrices, when we can have them both together to get a better view of how the preferences vary. So that's where the ranking matrix comes into play. So basically, in the ranking matrix, each element consists of an ordered pair. An ordered pair is made of the man's preference of the woman in that column and the woman's preference of the man in that row. So basically, the number 2 says that that Anne is Bob's second choice. Now let's see. Is Anne's Bob's second choice? Yes. She is his second choice. And this also says that Bob is Anne's third choice. Is this true? Anne is Bob. Yeah, Bob is Anne's third choice. So this is basically what this represents. This is good to keep in mind when we're working later on in the problem. Just know that for each ordered pair, the first number represents the boy's preference of the girl, and the second number represents the girl's preference of the boy. Okay, moving on. So basically what we're trying to do, this whole slide is just saying that we're trying to find the best match for each element from the first list to the second list. And each element will have one match only at the very end. يعني ما حيكون عندي مثلا هنا x1 is going to be married to y1 and y2. لا. حيكون بس married to y1 و x2 is going to be married to y2 and so on. The concept here is just they're basically saying that because we have connections between vertices and we're trying to find the best match between all of them, it's basically similar to the bipartite graph problem where we're trying to find the best possible connections to connect all the vertices in the graph while still maintaining some constraint. Okay, so عندنا حاجة اسمها blocking pair. It's in a way يعني the concept اللي كده مكتوب هنا is a bit confusing, but the bottom line is the blocking pair is the best possible match for that man and that woman, in which each of them is married to the person that they are best suited to, given that the person they would want more is already married off to a person who is better suited to them. So مثلا هنا the example will make it يعني clearer. Let's say we have هنا. I'll look at the stable part first and then the unstable part حيصير أوضح. طيب let's say عندي هنا البروبلم هنا كان أول عندي Bob and Anne, Leah and Jim, and Sue and Tom. This is unstable. ليش؟ If you go through the iterations دحين Bob is married off. لما أجي الجيم جيم حيجي يتقدم لليا وليا ما حتقبل إنه خلاص she's married to Bob. بس لما توم حيجي يتقدم لليا حتقبل ليا وحتفسخ من بوب. ف this is unstable عشان بوب تقدر تعتبروها إنه مكانة بوب is unstable through the iterations. That's يعني you can think of it that way. So the blocking pair is the pair that is the most suitable match for the pair we're talking about, the man and the woman. If the blocking pair exists, if the blocking pair is where we're at, then the match is stable, no one's going to come and change it. But if this is not a blocking pair, it is subject to change and it is subject to being replaced by some other better match suitor. Okay, so I wrote a little note here حسيت انها توضح الموضوع أكثر. إنه instability is basically when two people who are married to each other prefer different people who are also single. So يعني إذا عندي if I have M1 who prefers woman 1 and M2 who prefers woman 3 and this one's married to this one and they're both مثلا نقول these two are single, basically that means إنه they weren't in blocking pairs. معلش, I lost my train of thought for a moment, but just know that إنه because they prefer different people and the different people they prefer are single, they're not in blocking pairs until they're with the highest ranking person in their list who is still single. They're in a blocking pair. That's basically the point I wanted to get across here. Okay, moving on. الإكزامبل حيخلي كل شيء مرة أوضح. خاصة تكلمنا عن stable unstable. خلينا نشوف الالجوريثم نفسها. طيب, what we're going to do is we're going to take one list, go through that list, iterate through it by يعني مو randomly بس إنه like بترتيب الليست اللي هو موجود عندي, وحأمشي عليه ألين ما هذا الليست يتصفى. على أي أساس يتصفى؟ اللي فيه يتزوجوا. ففي هذا الالجوريثم إحنا حناخذ الرجال أول شيء. فكل رجال عنده حاجتين. مرة he's going to propose and then he's going to get the response. So when he proposes, he's going to look at his list. So for مثلا for man 1, he has a list of women 3 مثلا, women 2 and women 1. So first of all, he's going to propose to woman number 3, who is the highest ranking woman who has not rejected him before. حتفهموا ليش not rejected him before, بس أباكم أول شيء خلينا نعتبر إنه كل شيء صافي, no one rejected anyone yet. So if we have woman 3 وأتزوجها خلاص على طول. إذا هي single, إذا man 1 and women 3 are single, حيتزوجها على طول. طيب, نفترض هنا response. If she's free, she's gonna marry him على طول. If she's not free, هنا اللي في حالتين. So بس عشان you see it visually, the man proposes to the woman وبعدين الwoman عندها حالتين. If she's free, she has to accept. ما عندها خيار. If she's married, then she has two options. She can check whether this dude here ranks higher than her husband. If he does, then she marries him. If he doesn't rank higher than her current husband, then she rejects him. That's basically where we are. And this is a better way of looking at it than the algorithm هنا. But just know إنه كل الخيار في يد الحرمة. الرجال هيجي يتقدم لأفضل choice عنده, والحرمة إذا شافت إنه هو أحسن من زوجها حتبدل, حتاخده وحتسيب زوجها. إذا ما كان أحسن حتقوله خلاص توكل على الله, أنا مبسوطة مع زوجي. وإذا ما كانت مزوجة من الأساس غصبا عنها تتزوجوا. أوكي. في النهاية بعد ما لما يتزوج one of the men, خلاص when they're married, they get removed from the list of free men. If we get to a point where there are no more free men, then we can assume that we have all the men married in the best pairs possible. Okay, so for the example خلينا نسوي عندنا باب حيجي حيطالع في الليست حقته who's the highest ranking Leah. He's gonna propose to Leah and Leah's gonna accept because she's free. لسه ما عندنا أي أحد. طيب, is this true? Yes. So Leah is now married to Bob. Okay. Bob is going to be removed from the free men, and we're going to start with Jim on the next iteration. See, Bob proposed to Leah, Leah accepted. Okay, Bob is now removed from the list, and now we're going to look at Jim. So for Jim, his first option is also Leah. So زي ما قلنا إذا متزوجة برضه he's going to propose, and we're going to see if he ranks higher on her list or not. Being that he ranks third on Leah's list and Bob ranks second, she's going to reject his proposal and he's going to move on to the next person. Let's see, is this going to happen? So obviously he looks at Leah. Leah's going to say no, she rejected his proposal, and he's going to move on to the next match, who is Sue. The next match has him as the first choice. So Sue got her dream husband. So she's going to accept him, and Jim is going to be removed from the free men list. Sue accepted, and Jim was removed. Now we're going to look at Tom. So Tom looks at his list. His first choice is Sue, but Sue's already married, so he's going to propose either way. ما فرق معه. When he proposes, Sue is already married to her first choice, so she's going to reject him. Let's just check. Yep, Sue rejected him. But who's his next choice? His next choice is Leah. Now here is where it gets interesting. Now we can say that Bob and Leah, when they were in their first pair, they were not in their blocking pair. ليش? عشان now Tom is going to propose to Leah, being her first choice. So she is going to reject Bob and she's going to marry Tom. Now, if we see this, she's going to reject Bob, yep, and marry Tom. Now what happens to Bob? Because his marriage was busted open, because he's not married anymore, he's going to go back to the free men list. So he's going to be single again, and we're going to have to iterate through him all over again. Now I've got Bob back, see? So he's going to go through his options again. He's going to go and look at what options he has left. Since he was already rejected by Leah, he's going to go to his next best option, who is Anne. Since Anne did not reject him before, and Anne is not married, she has to accept him, she has to marry him. And she accepted him, and we found our N of matched pairs. All the men are married to the best possible pairs, so we can consider that they are all in their blocking pairs. Okay, so for the analysis, we've got no more than n squared iterations. Why is this? Because for each man, he has to be married to one woman. So what this means is we're going to leave each pair, every iteration is going to leave one less woman for the men. So at some point, if we go through, let's say 5 men, 5 times 5 men, so for each time a man is married, we have one less woman. So we're going to get to a point where after we iterate through all the men, there's going to be one woman left for one man, because the number of women goes down with each iteration. So we're not going to have any more than n squared iterations. There's no way. Okay. And as for the limitation, what this basically means, this whole slide, is just saying that it's more biased towards the man than it is the woman. So when we're marrying them, because we're taking the men in the iterations and not the women, we're putting the men's preferences at a higher priority than the women. So, for example, we're going to know that each man is married to the top woman in his list, but that we can't say the same for the women. And this problem will always be there, because that's just the way this algorithm works, but it just depends on who you're iterating through whose list. So if we choose to iterate through the women's list first, uh, we're gonna be biased towards the men, while if we iterate through the men's list, we're gonna be biased towards the women, which is a problem we can't escape, but it's just part of the algorithm. And finally, the applications. It has many applications. So these are just some of them. You can see the assignments of students to high schools in New York, the matching of new reform rabbits to their first congregation, rabbits, sorry, and so on. You can look through them, but just the bottom line is that the stable marriage tries to find the best possible solution to a problem and match uh, all elements from one array to the next, keeping the priorities in check, or where the priorities are the constraints. I hope the everything is clear. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.